So the dog and I here in Brighton, that thing there's a water stop, and it was used when steam engines were coming through here. Now, back down that way is Hobart, and up that way is the whole north of Tasmania opening up to us. We're not here because of any of this. Well, we're sort of here because of that. And what else was here, which was another track called the Apsley Line. It's been destroyed by the ravages of time. Departed from here, went up the Jordan River and into the Midlands. And the dog and I are going to do our best to retrace the steps of where this thing went. It's an incomplete picture, but we're going to give it a go.
During the late 1800s, before Federation, Tasmania was a colony and it operated in very real ways as its own individual country. During this period of isolation, the island experienced irrational exuberance towards trains. Without things like modern feasibility studies, lines could be built as ambitious experiments. The tracks were laid and the locomotives were placed on them, and only then would you truly find out if there was a demand for the service. The tracks ran along the eastern bank of the Jordan River before crossing over and following the Baghdad rivulet for a time on the western side. All along the route, the track had several bridges built just for it.
So you can see here, there's all this concrete up there on the hillside, and there's water over that way. There was a bridge, and the bridge went that way and that way. So over there on the other side of the stream, you can see a cut in the side of the hill, and that's where the train line was. The dog sniffed out something of interest here. Bit of an old billy cart. So we're here on the other side of the river, and there's a cut. So the train would have been coming up and down here. The tracks would have been going this way. You could be mistaken for thinking this was natural. You could if you didn't know what you were looking for. But eventually this will all come in on itself and there'll be no sign at all. Without setting out to find this place, we've come across a car graveyard. There's all these really old cars that have been pushed off the top of the cliff there, and now they're all just rusting away. There's weird stuff out there.
After running along the rivulet, the track began to take a path very similar to where the Midlands Highway goes now. Freeway development since this abandonment has made it quite difficult to tell where all of the original stations once were. In order to reach elevation, the track began to turn and wind slowly into the hills at Baghdad. The most difficult part of the construction was around here, and at least one person was killed during a blasting accident. Going around the side of Nanny Goat Hill and into the next valley to the west, there are remnants in the back lanes. Kempton, for quite a time, was called Green Ponds. The train arrived at a station. The station is gone now. Instead, there are jumps for getting 100% gnarly on the BMX. In a spot where the road and the rails crossed each other, there is a ditch holding stony remains. The rails and the sleepers are long gone, but the shadow is the line that is seen from above. Formation traced across the landscape. The silhouette of a couple of rail gangers operating a trolley has been placed just before the remains of a rotting timber trestle.
Potato, potato, rodeo, rodeo. That sign there says that we're in Melton Mowbray, and it's on the side of a shed. Now, if you were driving past here, you might think it was just part of a farm, something like that, but of course it was part of the Apsley train line. It's the last really decent sized big bit of infrastructure left. Everything else is just gone.
Beyond the goods shed, the line continued. It was never financially viable for nearly all of its time in existence, because the southern Midlands was sparsely populated, and it still is today. Today the pathway is a driveway. It later bends around the back of the hill before somehow rejoining with the Jordan River.
So over here, where the sheep are going, is the Jordan River. It's really low now because there hasn't been much rain this year. But over there is the embankment. That's where the bridge was that crossed the Jordan River at Apsley.
A substantial rail bridge was built here, and it survived for decades after the line closed, before being washed away in a flood in the 1970s. The existence of the bridge points to an earlier planning, a planning to extend the line further up to Bothwell. That never happened. Like so many other train tracks, not just in Tasmania, but Australia, the system was killed off by the roads. The village of Apsley was the termination station. Since the line closed, the village slowly closed too. Bit by bit, building by building, was demolished or decayed or destroyed. The line ran from 1891 to 1947. A solitary house is left where it all once was. The place is less than a hamlet. Everything changes, and everything goes away in the end.